Get me that signal. We need more power.
Welcome to the Voice of E Board Game Reviews. I am your host, Elliott Miller, and today I'll be looking at the Romulan expansion to Star Trek Fleet Captains from WizKid Games. The game was designed by Mike Elliott and Ethan Pasternak. The expansion was released in 2012. It'll cost you about $44 to pick yourself up a copy. This is the first expansion to Star Trek Fleet Captains, which pitted the Federation against the dreaded Klingon Empire in the original game. Now the Romulans have joined in the fray. Why don't we take a look at what comes inside the box? Some rules, not many. A new command console. Excellent. Here's some new location deck cards. One thing that bugs me about this game is the fact that these cards are so thin. They don't lay flat. They're all like that. But what can you do? More dice, a whole set of Romulan chits and tokens, mission deck for the Romulans, ship deck, ships, encounter cards, and the Romulan command deck. And of course, the greatest thing of all, the Romulan ships. Oh, is that not beautiful? And there are many, many ships. The addition of the Romulans to Fleet Captains adds quite a few options to the game. First off, you can now play up to 6 players if you're willing to play teams. Most of the time, I prefer to run my own side in these types of games, so the most exciting thing is that you can now have 3 players on different sides. There's only a single page of additional rules, so you'll be up and playing with the Romulans in no time flat. The Romulans bring along a whole new mission type with them. Espionage missions are for the most part kept secret until completed. The Romulans, of course, corner the market on these types of missions, but there's 2 modified cards, ship cards, for the Federation and Klingons that also include espionage missions. You can also choose espionage missions if you run out of your own missions during the course of the game. Espionage missions involve removing enemy control tokens, deploying cloaked ships, and distributing saboteurs throughout your enemy's fleets. In other words, you'll be doing something sneaky. The Romulans have plenty of firepower, but if you choose to remain in the shadows lurking around the board, then you certainly have that option. Along with the espionage missions comes the addition of the saboteurs. These are a new type of crew member that the Romulans have. They are actually placed on an opponent's ship, and they act as regular crew members. They usually provide some type of bonus to the players whose ship they're on. All goes well until the Romulans decide that it's time to strike. Most saboteurs have an ability which can only be activated by the controlling player, which is basically the Romulans. What this means is that you can be flying along through space with a traitor on board, then, say, a planet-eating monster appears, and you need to make a critical engines test or be sucked into oblivion. You make the roll, but the Romulans choose that moment to activate the traitor on your ship. That traitor happens to have the ability to reduce your engines by 2. Suddenly, you've failed your roll, and your ship is sucked into the Planet Eater to be slowly digested over many millennia. Saboteurs have different abilities, and they can each be painful if activated at the worst time, or best if you're the Romulans. Only 1 saboteur is allowed per ship, though, and there are ways to get them removed, so take heart. These did provide a few moments of getting really annoyed when you just finish doing something great and it all gets taken away. The Romulan players loved the saboteurs once they knew how to use them, which will take a couple of games to really get the hang of it. There are 10 new missions and 10 new location tiles to give you a bigger universe for 3 players to work with. I like the 3-player board setup that they suggest in the rules. They've added an emergency cloaking action and boosted victory points for the first starbase build and the first ship destroyed to kind of speed the game along a little bit. Now here is the reactions of my son and my nephew after our first game using the expansion.
But not me.
Well, we have just completed a game of Star Trek Fleet Captains. It was myself, my son Brian, and my nephew Daniel.
Hello.
As you can see, here is the board. There is Daniel. There's Brian. They're famous internet stars as well. Here is the board. As you can see, the one Romulan ship. There was one cloaked. We have 3 Klingons, which took over my starbase to win the game for the Klingons. As you can see, the Enterprise and the Excelsior were attempting to scan empty space, and they failed at that. The Federation lost both Voyager and the USS Reliant, which wasn't very reliable at all. Gentlemen, can you give me your impressions of the game?
First, I enjoyed it.
Daniel was the Romulans.
I was able to be a sneaky bastard, which is always exciting. Usually how I play. Pacing was good. It was really helpful to have the cheat sheets printed out that give you all the information about roles and rules and ships and stuff.
Yes, they were good reminders. I downloaded those off Board Game Geek, and they came in very handy.
Yes, they did. So I'd recommend that. I thought the factions were distinct enough that they had flavor to them, and they had play styles, which was good. And it was fun. I enjoyed it.
You had a good time?
Play it again.
Okay.
Ryan, what did you think?
Well, this is my 3rd time playing Star Trek Fleet Captains. This is my first time playing the Romulan expansion. I thought the Romulans were really interesting. I really liked their infiltrators and their saboteurs. They play more of a spoiler role rather than a straight aggressor role, which was kind of a cool play on the game.
Though they could be played as an aggressor.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you wanted to.
They were pretty interesting, and I liked the extra content that added to the Romulan race as opposed to, the Feds and Klingons have nothing like that. I do think there's a special rule in the Romulan expansion where the first starbase and the first kill give extra victory points. I don't know if that was necessary.
Yeah, it sped it up a lot, which it wasn't that long to begin with.
Yeah, I don't know if that extra rule was necessary.
Did you win? And you won because of that ultimately.
No, I would have won anyway. I
Would you?
ended up at 11 victory points instead of 10. So it didn't end up mattering in the
But
game.
actually, we all came pretty close.
We all
It was
came
very
pretty
close right at the end.
Yeah, the game's balanced well because we
Within
were
a
all
point.
within a point or
Yeah,
Yes.
two.
within a point.
So the game's balanced well. I think the pace is excellent. It took us 3 hours to play through it, but we spent most of the time talking to each other anyway.
Yeah.
Right, and relearning
And-
the rules since we hadn't
reading
played it
rules.
in a long time.
And even with me being way behind, I was able to come back in the end just because of it was
Yeah.
luck. But I did happen to have put my weapons up at the time, so that it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't done
Yeah,
that.
I think the rules work well for the game. I think it's really well paced. I think it's pretty fun. I enjoy playing it.
Overall, this is a must-have expansion if you own Star Trek Fleet Captains. They didn't include the silhouette sheet so that you know where to put the little ships back into the plastic insert, but you can download one over at Board Game Geek, as well as this great player aid that will help each player put together their initial command decks. This game only got better with the expansion, and I hope that WizKids continues to expand the line. I'm afraid that they'll only be concentrating on their new Star Trek Attack Wing HeroClix line now. It's the missions and exploration of space that makes this Star Trek Fleet Captains a great board game. So let's get a 4th player into the mix. The Borg, well, they might be too powerful. But what about the Cardassians? Only time will tell. Thanks for joining me in this review of Star Trek Fleet Captains: The Romulan Expansion. Please stay tuned for future board game reviews and subscribe to the Voice of E channel to get all the latest gaming and geek news each and every week. I'm Elliott Miller, and until next time, keep your mind free.